All right, so describe how talkies and animated films became a fan favorite for Americans in the 1920s. Give you guys a few minutes to finish up here. 2 more minutes, 3 more minutes. What do you think about Brady again?
I don't know. I don't know. Packers seem like they
I hope
have
so.
rather. I mean, I saw it coming.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you better not win.
What's that?
Brady kind of saying,
I hope not. I hope not.
You nervous?
Yeah, I'm nervous.
I was kind of mad about the Rams beating Seattle.
Yeah, that was a shocker, wasn't
I
it?
mean, they're due. Seattle's. I'm a Seattle fan. Our defense is really bad.
Yeah.
Against the Saints, it wasn't Brady or his defense. They got that.
Mm-hmm. He had 3 picks at the end. 2 or something, I forget. Something crazy.
I'm just excited about that matchup.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty good, I think. Hopefully it's better than the first game they played.
North Browns game?
I did. Yeah, that was pretty good. A little scary there what happened with Mahomes.
I was kind of happy.
You shouldn't be happy about that.
Well, I mean,
Made it more of
I
an
wanted the
exciting
Browns to
game. Yeah, I wanted the Browns to win too.
Did you watch the Washington game?
The Redskins?
Yeah.
Or the football team?
Football team? Yeah.
Yeah, I did.
Taylor Heineke, he was pretty. He was kind of
Yeah, he was. He was.
going.
Yeah. Alrighty, so let's go over this real quick. So describe how talkies and animated films became a fan favorite for Americans in the 1920s. So what would they do? What were Americans now getting involved in? How do they use their time after work, after working in these industries, the mines, you name it, these factories? Chris, what do you got?
There were a change from people's day-to-day schedule, so it'd be something different for them just to go out time, be social with people.
Yeah.
After work or working all day, just hanging out with friends.
Yeah, let's make life fun, right? Entertainment. Okay. Yeah. So no longer, throughout the progressive era, which we talked about in chapter 1, more people had more time on their hands. They'd, after working in the factories for long hours, right? That changed to 8-hour work days, 40 hours a week. So that gave people the opportunity to do things that they'd never done before. And this is where we see the emergence of entertainment, right? And some other forms of entertainment were what? So yeah, we had talkies, we had animated films that people would go to, these movie theaters in almost every town. Okay, but what else? I know I talked about it before. What other forms of entertainment would Americans partake in? Haley, go ahead. Sports, yeah, good job. Sports. What sport in particular? Baseball. Good job. Baseball. So yeah, these actors, these athletes, right? They were larger than life. They were to the point where everybody looked up to these people, and even today we can say the same, right? Whether it's Aaron Rodgers, right, Tom Brady, or I don't know, LeBron James. Right? There's a lot of these athletes that we look up to, and they're larger than life. They're something that we spend a lot of money, a lot of time watching them play their sport and hear what they have to say. And with Babe Ruth especially, he was probably the biggest star at the time. Everybody knew who he was. He was even more popular than the president of the United States. Like everybody knew who Babe Ruth was. And I talked a little bit about it before. Who else would Babe Ruth hang out with when he go play the Cubbies in Chicago? Scarface, who's that? Al Capone, yeah, good job. So everybody was like, "Oh my gosh, Al Capone's hanging out with Babe Ruth. This is pretty crazy stuff." But we all know with Al Capone how famous he was throughout the Prohibition, making a huge profit off of distributing alcohol, selling it when it was illegal, and there's really nothing many people could do about it because they're paying off politicians. They let's face it, everybody wanted to have alcohol, booze. They didn't really appreciate or like the law too much. And real quick, I know this is a review, but who are the two groups of people that emerged in the 1920s? What are the names of these groups of people? We had a clash between these two groups. Chris?
Modernists.
Yeah, good job. Modernists and fundamentalists. Where would you find the modernists at? In the urban areas, the cities, the rural areas?
New city areas.
Yeah.
They would go out to bars and stuff like that. While fundamentalists more on.
Yeah, good job. Family aspects, right? Traditional, family, I guess say, I don't know, goals, right? Okay, they would really focus a lot on religion and keeping the family together rather than going out and spending their money on entertainment and going to bars, things like that. So there's a clash in the United States because this was new. This was something that's never been seen before in American culture. Good job. All right, so these talkies, the animated films, people will go to these movie theaters. It's not like what we have today where we can just flip on the TV and we can watch whatever cartoon we want, especially now at Disney Plus, right? With Netflix, Hulu, you can watch whatever show, movie. Really, that's offered on those programs. And at the time, they didn't have TVs in their house. They had radios, right? And a lot of people listen to these radios and gather together in a living room and picture in their mind what was going on with the words being said. And for movies, because they were new, they would go down to, let's say the town square, and there would be a movie theater there where many people would watch these skits, these films, and really spend their time and money at these places for entertainment. It's unfortunate now. I wonder if movies will ever be a thing again after COVID and everything. It kind of stinks. I missed going to a movie theater. What do you think, Chris? Yeah. What about you, Jakari?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh. Where do you go? Millersburg.
Yeah.
Millersburg. Yeah.
Usually just go and watch it.
Oh, okay.
I want to see that grandpa movie.
Over break.
Not over break.
I think they are starting to
Back in
open them back
November,
up.
I think, where what's his name? War with Grandpa.
War with Grandpa.
Yeah. Robert De Niro.
Oh, I don't think I've ever seen it or heard about it. I heard of Bad Grandpa
You mean Dirty Grandpa?
or Dirty Grandpa. Okay.
Yeah, there's another one.
No, all right. Okay, there's bell ringer for today. There you go. Yeah, talk to your grandparents. I know in Millersburg and everything there's still one there, but in these towns there probably were movie theaters that
There's one
in Eville. Where was that at?
the paper place on Broad Street
Yeah. Okay.
next to the Frontier Building.
A movie theater.
No, not that place. The elderly home.
The elderly home.
Hollywood.
Okay.
Place.
Okay. Yeah, there you go. I mean, I don't know this area too well, but Valley View, Higgins, I know there are a couple of movie theaters there that it was just a shock to me. Oh, I was movie theater at once. It's pretty cool, pretty interesting to think about. All right, so moving on. Writers of the 1920s. That's where we're going to get to today. So we just talked about entertainment. Okay, we're going to talk about these writers, these authors, these journalists. All right, so what were those people called that talked about these stories in the factories, the industries, the unsafe conditions? You guys remember that, the Progressive Era, Chapter 1? What were those people called? These writers, these journalists that uncovered the problems in these factories. Haley, go ahead. Muckrakers, good work. Good job. Good job. So after the Progressive Era, things are getting better, obviously. And after World War I, America was going through a phase where entertainment was taking hold. People had more time on their hand. They were spending their money doing things they'd like. And like I said before, sports, movies, radios, you name it. A lot of these things were becoming, prevalent in people's households and their lives, so they could enjoy it and have fun, after work and spend their money the way they'd like and the way they want. And writing especially came prevalent during this time because more people were getting an education. They could read these magazines, these newspapers that were presented on, in town squares and cities, and they pick it up, read it, spend money on it, and enjoy it. Okay, very similar like with today with podcasts. Radios would do the same thing, and people will listen to their favorite shows on these radio broadcasts. But writing especially became really, really big, and pictures, poetry, artwork. Okay, since these cities were becoming, they're new all throughout the United States. Many artists started painting these really great portraits of the cities, the skyline, the skyscrapers, and it sold for a lot of money because, again, before the 1920s, before the early 1900s, these cities weren't a thing. Okay, people lived out in the rural areas. They worked on the farm, and visualizing these huge skyscrapers was a shock and I guess you could say something that people just envision in their minds. I know New York City, I've never been there yet. I'd like to go. I think it'd be pretty cool. I see pictures. I'm in a maze of the skyscrapers and how big these buildings are. And with this time, people are drawing pictures, painting these different types of art forms of artwork. And it was interesting for many Americans to buy and just think about these new forms of entertainment. And like I said, these skyscrapers in these big cities, it was a shock to many Americans. All right, so painters like Edward Hopper depicted the loneliness of American life. Okay, he was really just trying to pick apart, with these new cities, what do people do? Okay, at first, there were radio broadcasts, there were talkies, there were movies. But before that really came about, what do? You go to work, you go to the factories, and you come home and you just sit around. It's like, what do we do from here? So he was just kind of drawing out these different forms of artwork and showing people just kind of walking aimlessly in the cities and kind of depicting people going home after their work day. It's like, where do you go? What do you do? Because this is a different change of lifestyle for many of these Americans that are living in these rural areas out in these places where they farmed, and did these games like baseball or pickup games. In these cities, where do you go to do that? Okay. George O'Keeffe captured the grandeur of New York using intensely colored canvases. Okay, so depicting these new forms of restaurants, these skyscrapers, and publishing them in magazines and newspapers for people to read. And like I said, people out in the rural areas saw this as a fascinating thing. Okay, they never seen these buildings before, and the skyline with these skyscrapers and the lights that filled these skyscrapers before. It's just a huge adjustment, a change. All right, so Sinclair Lewis, one of the most famous American artists. Writers. So he's Nobel Prize in Literature, wrote The Babbitt. Okay. And the Babbitt really just talked about materialism. Okay, how many Americans were trying to buy these extravagant, these very expensive dresses, suits, okay, trying to decorate their homes with the most advanced and newly formed appliances like refrigerators, ovens, microwaves, right? He was just really talking about the conformity of this new style of living, this modernism that was really appealing to many Americans in the 1920s, where they would just buy these new products because it was more affordable for Americans. They were going around and really enjoying their time and forms of entertainment, going to the bars and drinking, dancing. Okay. And he was really writing and pretty much criticizing it and saying, hey, this is really not for me, but this is what's going on in this new culture of America. People are spending their time and money going about and really just spending their money aimlessly. Before people save that money up, help their children out, buy land, build a house, and instill those core values within the household. Okay, and this is a huge change for Sinclair Lewis, especially when he's writing this in this book. Let's face it, yeah, the cities are still different today, right? I know a lot of my friends that live in inner city Philly, how they spend their time, their money, and it's kind of a shock to me. It's like, oh, you guys are going out to play Top Golf, which is really fun. I love playing Top Golf. But it's like every weekend. It's like, where is he going? Like, how's he spending all this money? What is he doing here? It's interesting. It's a different change of pace. It's a different lifestyle. All right, so remember Sinclair Lewis. You guys got that? Can I move on? Okay, no problem. No problem.
What's going on?
What's up?
What's going on?
I think they're just trying to improve the Wi-Fi here. So they're running cords throughout the hallways and in the classrooms or routers. Yeah. All right. So remember Sinclair Lewis, the Babbitt. Okay, he was really discussing about the new forms of conformity, materialism that he didn't agree with. He thought it was a shock, a cultural shock, right? And how these people were just spending their money willy-nilly like, right, on these new forms of materials and entertainment. All right, F. Scott Fitzgerald, okay, coined the jazz age, 1920s. A lot of that had to do with when you're walking down these city lines, when you're walking in these towns, jazz was playing all around, okay? Music, right? This was something that was new, okay? Everywhere you went, you heard jazz music. And these like pickup bands, I guess you would call them, at the corners of these streets and these town centers where people would go and enjoy it. Okay. It's like almost everywhere you walked, you heard jazz music. On the radio. All right. Again, that was still something new for many Americans. This radio, this music being played pretty much everywhere you went. All right. Fitzgerald wrote Paradise Lost and The Great Gatsby. Everybody ever see the movie The Great Gatsby? What's that?
A little weird.
It's a little weird. Why is that?
I couldn't really follow it.
No. I didn't get to see the movie yet. With I think Leonardo DiCaprio's in it. Tobey Maguire's in it. Yeah, I got to check that out. But yeah, The Great Gatsby. So he wrote about the emptiness of New York elite society, right? So every day, these elite Americans would get together, pretty much every day, and throw huge parties, extravagant parties, where there'd be fine wine, right? The top shelf, I guess you would call it, of alcohol there. There'd be music playing constantly at these balls. There'd be people going to dance at these places, dress up real fancy and enjoy themselves and pretty much just flaunt their wealth to many of the other Americans, right? Many of these people that are middle class, lower class. And he was just writing about how these elite people would pretty much do this every weekend, every day. And what was the point of it? I don't know. Social gathering, I guess. But realistically, he was just saying how corrupt it really was and how kind of sick it was, right? How these people would just throw these huge parties, dress up to the most expensive wardrobe, clothing, and drink the finest wine and eat the greatest foods. And it was almost like they were sticking it to the middle class, the lower class. Like they were trying to show off what they had. And it wasn't American-like, what he was trying to get at. It was almost like they were ridiculing the lower middle class, that they weren't, as I guess you could say, at the same stage as them. Like they're constantly sticking their nose out at other Americans because they couldn't afford what they could afford and do the things that they could do. And again, why throw a big party every week, every day? There's really no point of it, right? There's no point of it. It's just, I guess, to spend their money, spend their time. All right, so Riders of 1920s, moving on here. Oh, do you need me to go back? Did I move too fast? Good? Okay. So Edith Wharton, Age of Innocence, dramatized the clash between traditional and modern values. We talked about that a lot. Well, I did in the video anyway. And these modernists living in these cities, these urban areas, how this was a huge shock to many of these people living out in the rural areas. Okay, these people that lived on these farms, okay, away from these big cities, were listening on the radio of these new changes, these cultural changes, how people were spending so much money on entertainment and material values like clothing, cars, appliances, their house, and they're just totally in shock. And schools, education, teaching about new forms of sciences that might challenge religion, okay, their core values. And again, many people thought this was a huge shock, okay, and they didn't agree with it. All right, Willa Cather celebrated simple, dignified lives of immigrant farmers. Okay, so immigrant farmers, how they came to America, living the American dream, as what was depicted throughout the 1800s, the 1700s, and it was almost like American culture was shifting and changing totally. But these immigrants knew exactly what America was built on, the framework of America, the foundation. You got that, Hunter? All right, yeah. So these immigrants coming in, it's almost like they're more American-like than these actual Americans, right? Because they were living the American dream, buying land, farming, and producing crops and food profit, right? So they could support their family, not spending their money and their time in these bars and these restaurants, getting drunk, and on these new types of clothing and accessories. You guys got that? Okay, 1 second, no problem. So biggest thing in the 1920s, modernist fundamentalists, right? Organized crime, Al Capone. Sports, entertainment. New style, new lifestyle for Americans. All right, we good now? Okay. So next one, Ernest Hemingway. Very famous writer. Okay, he wrote The Sun Also Rises, Farewell to Arms, and he was a World War I vet. So he experienced World War I, and he really talked about how brutal it actually was. So remember, before World War I, the Spanish-American War, right? This was the short and splendid little war, okay? And many Americans glorified war. They thought, oh yeah, this is almost like a game. This is something that we can just go and show our masculinity, show that we are bigger and better than everybody else in the world. And Ernest Hemingway wrote in these books and described what war was actually like. Okay, how it wasn't just a game, how it wasn't just a fun time. He described in his writings how it really ripped apart men psychologically. It'll affect them for the rest of their lives. And really just how much brutality and chaos one person, one man can do to another man with these new forms of technology, weaponry that's never been seen before. He wrote about these things to try to show the American public that war isn't what it's like, right? That what it's really told at before young children go to bed. It's not something that they should be just looking forward to like a game. And when we get to World War II, you'll see more pictures, you'll see more videos, right? Vietnam War especially, reporters actually on the battlefield to show Americans what war is actually about. So even World War I, we still don't understand what war is about yet. Okay, how affected people can be from warfare. Anybody see or hear of The Lord of the Rings, The Hobbits? Yeah. Okay. So that actually came about because of World War One. Right? There's a cool movie. It's called Tolkien. It's the man that wrote Lord of the Rings and The Hobbits, and he describes World War One through this new mystic, right? This fictional land, and adventures with Lord of the Rings and The Hobbits. It's pretty interesting. So whenever you watch those or read the books, check it out. All right, check it out. There's a lot of his ideas came from World War One. All right, and then finally, these writers call themselves the Lost Generation. Right, the Lost Generation. A lot of it because they just couldn't believe what avenue, what road America's taking. This new form of entertainment, music, right? Spending it out in the bars and having fun, and it wasn't for these writers. It was something like of a cultural shift, a change that they didn't agree with. It's like they're forgetting of their core family values, forgetting of their religious backgrounds, and I guess you could say living life to the fullest, right? YOLO. Right? It was just a total change of culture for many Americans, and these writers were just depicting it. They're stating it that yeah, we shouldn't be focused here on the material style of living, right? We shouldn't be worried about what type of clothing we wear, what type of cars we drive, what kind of phone we have, right? Yeah, the iPhone, what, 12 now, 13 coming out, crazy, crazy. I still have the 7. Works good, works fine. I'm happy with it. All right, but anyway, many of these writers moved to Europe because they were still rebuilding from World War One, and it was just a slower pace of life. It wasn't like what these cities like New York and Chicago, Boston, Philly, really, I guess you'd say, transferred into, right? It was just something that they were used to. It wasn't this fast pace of lifestyle living and spending money on senseless things. All right, is there any questions on that? You guys good? So writers in the 1920s, make sure you remember some of them and their famous work. Okay, a lot of it was just challenging the new lifestyle many Americans had. All right, real quick, I want to sign this for you right now. Okay, I'll put this out for you. I'll just do this. All right, we will have another project, 1920s. Oh, I know. It'll be due Friday, too. Oh, you can work with a partner. Shouldn't take you too long. Right? It's not a battle like in World War One, World War Two, which we're going to talk about. This is more just about famous people, okay, different types of entertainment, appliances, whatever you want to do. All right, so here are the topics you can research. The Harlem Renaissance, which I'll talk about tomorrow, Prohibition, speakeasies, women's rights, 1920s fashion, entertainment. The list goes on and on. Okay, we even have Babe Ruth. We have the New York Yankees, mass production. Henry Ford, 20s toys, architecture. Henry Houdini. Ooh, look at that. That's a cool one. Again, there's a huge list. Pick whatever one you want. I want to make sure that everybody doesn't have the same one though. So whenever you come up with a topic, let me know. And yeah, there you go. So again, presentations will be Friday. All right, so those of you at home, you know the drill. Just record it. You don't have to be in the video, just the presentation and you talking about it. And turn that in for Friday. Not today, Friday. All right, take care, guys. See you later.